Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome everyone into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. And ladies and gentlemen, it feels like we were just here. Time is flying, but not in the way that you think. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into the Computer America Show. We are, of course, happy that you're here, and we are going to give you a show that is going to strike a lighter note, a better chord than a lot of the stories that are floating around out there, because we have with us today Ralph Bond. He is our science and tech trends correspondent, and we talk about a number of stories that may have missed you because, sometimes they're either early research and a lot of places don't cover stuff like that, or, they just don't make as much of an impact as other stories. But they're going to be good, they're going to be interesting, and they're going to be uplifting. And ladies and gentlemen, with that being said, computeramerica.com, that is our site. That's where you will find everything, including past shows, asterisk, future shows, show notes, articles, and more. Anything that we do with Computer America, you can, of course, find on our site. So with that being said, the show notes, I should really, push those, because that's where you'll find everything. Ralph spends a lot of time getting those together and really giving you links, sources. If you are confused about anything like we are, you can, of course, go to the show notes and check that out. So with all that being said, let's go ahead, bring Ralph on, and just get started. So, ladies and gentlemen, once again, science and tech trends correspondent to bring us anything that science and tech kind of touch. Well, Ralph has it here. So, Ralph, welcome back onto the program. How you been?
I'm doing great, and it's great to be back. And we survived another week, everybody. We're still all here.
Somehow.
And like Ben was saying, I'm the science and technology trends correspondent for the show. And if you're new to the show, I want to give you a brief overview of what we do. What Ben and I do each Friday is highlight 4 recent articles that show us key trends and developments in a whole range of things: artificial intelligence, robotics, medical technology, sustainable energy technology, transportation advances, agricultural technology, space research, physics, you name it. Most important of all, as he alluded to, what we're going to do is give you an oasis of positive news, thanks to the world of science and technology.
Absolutely. And before we get started, just wanted to give a quick heartfelt apology to one of our listeners that reached out and asked to listen to a show from a couple of years ago, namely 2014. And, when we switched services, we made the difficult decision to, we didn't go back and purposely delete anything, but we, started using different services, and we thought about the arduous task of migrating things. Most of our stuff was on Apple Podcasts that you could kind of hear back then, but going forward, honestly, if you go to our YouTube channel, December 3rd, 2014 was our first ever video. You'll see Craig's smiling face there, staring at you. And he was looking for an interview from December 1st, 2014. So missed it by 2 days before we started keeping it on YouTube. So if it's not on Apple, I apologize. We did not go back and make the effort to do it. It might be on a hard drive somewhere, covered in dust here at the studio. But you can find most of our shows. Usually going back to I kept in my personal records up to 2017, because Ralph, I was technology being technology, 8-9 years, people aren't really going to be looking for information back. No, it's, Ralph, it's like finding that Quora or that Yahoo Answers thread that's just your problem with that old TV, and they just don't give you the information that you're looking for, even though it's exactly what it is. So, ladies and gentlemen, most of our shows are in the podcast services. So apologies. But with all that being said, All of our other shows, especially Everything with Ralph, you can find online in a lot of places. So, Ralph, I say for everyone out there who's just listening and ready for a new show, let's go ahead and kick it off with story number 1.
Yes, this is really a cool one from an outlet I hadn't visited before. Digital Camera World is the publication.
I wonder what they do.
The headline here is really interesting. Ben, this story has a lot of layers of trends and developments and so forth in the field of digital imaging. But the headline here is scientists develop a compact camera that can identify objects at the speed of light. And a little tease forward, we'll jump forward. This is going to be about photonic or light-based computing as part of the equation here. So it's really interesting. And again, folks, if you're new to the show, get the show notes because we've got the link to the original article. I have a link to their research paper, and there's also a link to show you a video and so on. There's all this additional information. If you're listening to us as a podcast, you can come back out, get the show notes, and dig deeper if you want to. But here we go with the story. 2 leading professors at the University of Washington have been conducting fascinating research into how to create a compact camera where the lens is replaced by engineered optics that can identify objects at the speed of light while still capturing crisp, clear images. And if you have the show notes, you can see the little device they've come up with. This is really a big development in the area of computer vision. And their research involves a new type of compact camera engineered for computer vision. And computer vision, folks, is a type of artificial intelligence that enables computers to recognize objects in images and videos. Think of surveillance and other possible uses for this as well. And the research prototype uses optics for computing, significantly reducing power consumption and allowing the camera to identify objects, again, at the speed of light, representing a new approach to the field of computer vision. And optical computing is really amazing, Ben. I'm sure you've had a chance to look at this stuff.
Yeah, a little bit, and it's still, very much trial and error. It's, and Ralph, like in a lot of applications that you need this for, you have to have really high accuracy because you don't want to mistake school kids crossing a road for a speed bump. Stuff like that is you want to be very careful. So I'm amazed that they're able to shrink it down to this much because I remember it being many different units working together, and this is very concise.
Yeah, that's a good point. And an example of me injecting some tutorial material into the article highlights. For example, when someone says using optics for computing, they're talking about employing light or photons instead of electricity, electrons, to perform computational tasks. And this approach is known as optical computing or photonic computing. And the idea is to use light's properties, such as its speed and capacity to carry massive amounts of data to improve the performance of computers. And again, in the show notes, I've got more information about optical or photonic computing if you want to dig deeper into that. But carrying on with the show, instead of using, and this is more than just using a light-based computing system to augment this camera, instead of using a traditional camera lens made out of glass or plastic, the camera relies on layers of 50 meta lenses, which are flat, lightweight optical components using microscopic nanostructures to manipulate light. And I said to myself, wait a minute, time out. Digital Camera World magazine figures you know what this is. What a meta lens? What's that? So I had to go out and get a little more information, which I've injected into the site show notes. And let me explain real quick. A meta lens is an advanced optical technology that uses meta surfaces to focus light. Unlike traditional curved lenses, meta lenses are flat and thin, which makes them ideal for compact systems like smartphone cameras and augmented reality devices. Ben, I don't know about you, but I have not heard of meta lenses before.
No, and funny that they mention augmented reality because Meta is usually associated with Facebook's parent company, but no, they're obviously talking about something a little bit different here. So
yeah, and in the show notes I have a whole bunch of additional information about meta lenses you can dive into if you so desire. So these meta lenses developed by the team at the University of Washington fit into a compact optical computing chip. And the meta lenses also function as an optical neural network. which is an artificial intelligence computer system based on how the human brain works. Ben, think about it for a moment. This story has photonic computing, neural networking, artificial intelligence, all this going on in a camera lens that's flat, not like a curved lens. This is a kind of profound on so many layers.
It seems like the real benefit to all this, which they kind of outlined before, was, at the speed of light processing these images. Like, it's how fast can the lights of the image go through this whole system? Because, Ralph, there's no like CPU, there's no GPU, or well, I'm saying there's no GPU. Anyways, there's none of those traditional bottlenecks that we have with traditional computing. And hey, real time computer vision has, I could imagine, a lot of benefits.
Yeah. And wait, there's even more benefit. Get this, because the optics rely on incoming light to operate rather than electricity, the power consumption is greatly reduced. So it even has a power benefit on top of all the things we've talked about so far. And to wrap things up on this story, another advantage is that because the computation takes place at the speed of light, the system can classify more than 200 images faster than neural networks that use conventional camera hardware. So there's been neural network-based computer vision systems before based on conventional electrical computation. What they're saying here is that because they're using photonics, the system can classify more than 200 images faster than neural networks that use conventional camera hardware. Wow.
And you don't have that, that time between like encoding and, switching it from optical to, to digital and back and forth. No, this is really amazing stuff. And, coming from Princeton, was it? Very impressive.
University of Washington, just up the road from me. And folks, I live in the Portland, Oregon area. So these are my Northwest cousins, Silicon Forest cousins to the north, University of Washington.
Yeah, gotcha. I probably pulled that from the video that they had embedded in the article. You can see Princeton Engineering. So I don't know, probably a collaboration of some sort.
It's got to be, yeah.
So with that being said, though, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to find out more and check out the images, it's not going to replace your next iPhone camera, but hey, you got to start with the prototype and then it will shrink down. So very cool. Story number one. Story number two, let's go ahead and skip on down and let's talk about, something that has gotten a lot of attention over the years, especially with us doing the show, is this idea of not just reducing CO2, which is important, but to kind of reverse some of the damage that we've done from other sources, because it kind of gives us that flexibility. You can't just go to the source of it and say, okay, we'll cut this by 80%, 90%, and we're good. No, we need to kind of turn down the dial a bit if we can. And story number two hopes to do that, but also, hey, with an added benefit of turning waste into resources. So, Ralph.
Yeah, this is a really fun story, and it's indicative of a trend, which is what we try to do every week. This comes from Gizmodo.com, fun, always a fun outlet. Headline: This solar-powered reactor sucks CO2 from the air and turns it into fuel. Now, right off the top, I want to stress this is not this general idea of extracting CO2 from the air and then either burying it in the ground or trying to turn it into some kind of useful fuel or product is not a new idea. But there's a twist to this. What these folks you're going to find out have done is the solar-powered part of the equation, which I think was just really fascinating. Once again, I have a link to their research paper in addition to the link to the Gizmodo article in the show notes. So I'm going to open up with my comment here. All around the world, scientists are working on ways to capture CO2 from the atmosphere. And the most exciting research, in my opinion, has to do with not just burying the CO2 once it's captured, but turning it into useful products or fuel. And this news is a great example of that trend. And I want to stress again, this is not the first time somebody or a team of researchers have said, can we convert the CO2 into something useful? That's not what we're saying. It's the twist here is the solar powered part of it.
Mm-hmm.
So here's the problem, Ben, the researchers tried to address here, or are addressing with this new breakthrough. Carbon capture and storage is a possible means of reducing greenhouse gas emissions. We've talked about this for years. The problem is that most carbon capture technologies are powered by burning fossil fuels. That seems oxymoronic, right? Not to mention the fact that CO2 captured in the process needs to be stored somewhere, such as deep underground. But a new reactor could solve all of that, as the article points out. And here we go. Researchers at the University of Cambridge have built a solar-powered reactor that converts atmospheric carbon dioxide into a gas that could one day fuel vehicles, power off-the-grid dwellings. That's an interesting application because it's solar-powered, and even produce pharmaceutical products. Now, once again, the conversion of CO2 captured from the air into useful products is not new. It's the solar-powered part that's so exciting, in my opinion. The researchers say they were inspired by photosynthesis and claim that their technology can be scaled up more easily than earlier solar-powered devices designed to capture CO2. So again, it's not the first ever solar-powered thing, but again, their twist is carrying it through into the area of creating useful products.
Right.
And
it's and Ralph, like, it really has amazed me that over the years, like, seeing what how solar energy is not like a figured out thing. We're still trying to work out. Something that made the news that we didn't really talk about was they have that giant solar farm out in the desert where they have all the mirrors pointing up and boiling water and turning a turbine. I forgot what that. It wasn't Solar City. That's the different thing. But whatever plant that was, whatever power generating plant that was, recently closed down after after just a couple of years because it was found to be pretty inefficient compared to other solar technologies that are being developed nowadays. My whole point is it's always surprising that solar power, even though, Ralph, it's kind of been, it's a known thing, but it's still going through iterations and it's still getting developed in many, many different ways. So.
Oh, gosh, yes, you're so correct. There's so much work going on in solar energy capture, all kinds of interesting, innovative things like windows for buildings and so on. But to go on with our story here, a chemist on the University of Cambridge team noted, quote, "What if instead of pumping the carbon dioxide underground, we made something useful from it?" Again, not a novel idea. CO2 is harmful greenhouse gas, as we all know, but it can also be turned into useful chemicals without contributing to global warming. Again, that's where the solar reactor is important. The new solar reactor is completely solar powered, meaning it requires no cables or batteries. That's where it could be useful in deployment in off-the-grid areas where you need this kind of service. And at night, it filters CO2 from the air, similar to how a sponge soaks up water, according to the researchers. And then during the day, sunlight heats the collected CO2, which absorbs the sun's infrared radiation, while a semiconductor powder, wait a minute, what's that? We'll find out. While a semiconductor powder absorbs the ultraviolet radiation. A mirror on the reactor concentrates the sunlight for greater efficiency in the system. Now, side note, this is indicative of what I try to do with the show notes. Side note here, semiconductor powder consists of finely ground particles of semiconductor materials such as good old silicon, gallium arsenide, or other compounds. And these materials exhibit electrical properties that fall between those of conductors and insulators, making them crucial for the functioning making them crucial for the functioning of electronic devices. And I have more information in the show notes about semiconductor powder because, Ben, I don't know about you, I had never heard of that before.
No, it's certainly something that is not in my wheelhouse, but a lot of this isn't, so I'm not surprised.
Yes. And the absorption by the semiconductor powders initiates a chemical reaction in the reactor that converts the CO2 into synthesis gas, or syngas, which is a mixture of carbon monoxide and hydrogen that is an important ingredient in the production of many fuels and chemicals. And the University of Cambridge team, to wrap this up, is currently researching how to convert this solar syngas into liquid fuels that could one day sustainably power vehicles like cars and planes and you name it. So, interesting twist. Again, the concept of capturing CO2, converting it into something useful is not new, but the level to which these guys have made it dependent on solar energy exclusively is a really interesting development.
Seems very much passive, I guess is the word that you would use here. Instead of having to actively feed in fuel, electricity, and try to get it going, the way that they said at night, it would filter CO2 from the air. I'm assuming using the energy stored and then, using solar power. Very passive, which is something that, you're going to need because Ralph, at the outset, they're very right. It's kind of hard to say you need to burn gas to, reverse the effects from burning gas. It's, you're definitely going to need green power somewhere in this to feed into the flow.
Yes.
So very cool. Story number 2, story number 3, and robotics, always a fun topic. So many different applications, as we like to say. But this one is a bit different because when you think about robots, you think hard, you think, things that could crush you or fold you up. It's, robotics is not seen as a very cuddly kind of space. But hey, story number 3 might be changing that.
Yeah, this is a really interesting one in the field of robotics. This comes from techexplore.com, and it's actually a story fed by the Seoul National University in South Korea. So the headline here is engineers develop a soft robot that crawls, climbs, and shapeshifts to move in new directions. And Ben, over the past many years, you and I have seen lots of developments in robotics. But this one's kind of an interesting twist. Now, in the show notes, we have a link to the show, and there's a video embedded in the article. You really should check that out. And again, a link to the research paper if you want to go super geeky. But let's get into this. A new type of soft robot can crawl like a worm, climb cables, and suddenly snap into a completely different shape to move in a new direction, all controlled by a single air input. So this is a little cable conducting air. So they're using air as the mechanical motivation, so to speak. And this breakthrough, developed by researchers at the Seoul National University in South Korea, introduces a fundamentally new way for soft robots to move and adapt to their surroundings. Soft robots made from flexible materials are known for their ability to bend and stretch. However, until now, they struggled to precisely control motion and required complex systems with multiple inputs to perform different tasks. Think about that, multiple inputs. We're talking about one line feeding air into this little robot.
Yeah.
And it's kind of remarkable.
The video that you mentioned in the show notes is, which we're going to play again, really highlights it. So come check out the video.
I know, it's cute. It's actually kind of a cute, weird little thing.
Very, very worm-like. I'm glad that they use that word. Very worm-like.
Yeah. And then the new robot solves these challenges by using a snap-through mechanism similar to how a toy jumping popper suddenly flips inside out, or how a Venus flytrap quickly closes around its prey. And in the show notes, I have a picture of a toy jumping poppers. I had to go, wait a minute, what is it? I think I know what they're talking about. Yeah, it's those little kind of like half circle things you press down, and then over a few seconds, it just boop, pops up.
For everyone else, it's when your cousin gives you an old worn out racquetball and you cut it in half and then you just flip that inside and out. Same thing.
Yes, that's true. So the researchers designed a snap inflatable modular metastructure that allows the robot to both smoothly deform and rapidly snap into a new configuration using just one air source. To demonstrate the power of the system, the team built 2 robotic designs. 2. A crawling and climbing robot. This robot crawls across surfaces like an earthworm by expanding and contracting its body. Unlike existing soft robots, it can also grip and climb cables. That's important, making it useful for navigating difficult environments. Now, the second one they created, a self-reconfiguring robot. This robot moves forward by bending, but then with a sudden snap, it expands into a larger shape, enabling it to change direction and navigate complex terrain. And this ability to move in different directions on demand has never been demonstrated in soft robotics before. There's your ding, ding, ding.
For sure.
And with its ability ability to crawl, climb, and snap into new forms. This technology from Seoul National University could lead to rescue robots that navigate through debris, medical robots that move inside the human body, although the size of this thing, I'm a little wonder about that, and deployable structures that change shape on demand. So anything's possible. This is very early research. Where this goes from here, we'll have to wait and see.
I could imagine that the human body part is pretty interesting because, it doesn't need any kind of like hydraulic fluid. It doesn't need really even like electricity if it's mainly, just using air as a form to kind of work the motors and stuff. Very appealing, I'm sure, to medical applications, but still very cool. And the video is cute with the little Lego dude getting rescued there. Fun as it kind of crawls away. Fun. So story number 3, story number 4, let's go ahead and jump on over to our last story. And as you like to say, story number 4, a lot of the stories can be really any different category of topics, but story number 4 you uniquely reserve for medical technology, because medical technology has the wonderful feature of being cutting edge, while also very, very helpful for a lot of people. Like there's a lot of hope in medical breakthroughs and technology. So number 4, no different, and we could talk about people who have suffered spinal cord injuries. Always an interesting field and interesting place to develop. So, Ralph, story number 4.
Yeah, this one comes from the University of California, Berkeley, and their engineering news page. Wonderful, wonderful outlet. And we have the link to that in the show notes. The headline here is New Assistive Device Enhances Grasping for People with Spinal Cord Injuries. And I have to stress this right from the top. You really do need to come out and look at the show notes and look at the images from the article and elsewhere that show you what this device is, because otherwise it's going to be very hard with words only to describe, but we'll do our best. But a little bit of setup here. More than 15 million people worldwide are living with spinal cord injury, which can affect their sensory and motor functions below the injury level. And this can mean, of course, paralysis affecting their limbs and limited voluntary finger and wrist flexion. Keep that in mind, voluntary finger and wrist flexion or movement, making it difficult to grasp large, heavy objects. Now, a team at UC Berkeley, the engineers there from the Embodied Dexterity Group, has developed a wearable device to enhance grasping functionality in this population. Again, people suffering from spinal cord injuries. Now, they call this device the dorsal grasper. This assistive device leverages voluntary wrist extension and uses supernumerary, I can't even say that, supernumerary, I can't say it, SUPERNUMERARA.
Supernumerary.
What do you think, Ben? How do you say that?
Supernumerary. Yes, I guess.
That's a real tongue twister. So anyway, let's go over that again. Dubbed dorsal grasper, the assistive device leverages voluntary wrist extension and uses supernumerary robotic fingers on the back of the hand to facilitate human-robot collaborative grasping. This is where the images are so helpful. It's the back of the hand, and that video you're showing is helpful as well. Now, what is supernumerary? I can't say it. Is something or someone that is extra or beyond what is necessary. In general use, it refers to an additional or surplus item on a person. In anatomy, a supernumerary part is an additional body part, such as a sixth finger. The term comes from Latin and literally means over the number. Wow. So again, you need the video to see that this is on the back of your hand. It's a really different kind of approach. The test subjects found that they could easily grasp objects anywhere. They could reach their arm without having to rotate their bodies, which can cause wheelchair users to lose their balance. Now, the team designed what they call, and we mentioned this in passing before, collaborative grasping. People with tetraplegia, also known as quadriplegia, will often retain, even though they have a terrible disability, but they often retain the ability to extend the wrist backward but don't have the ability to flex it forward. Isn't that interesting? And people can be strong in their wrist in this extension movement. The team wanted to enhance the capability to extend the wrist backward by enabling, grasping, but in such a way that the person is an active partner in the grasping of an object. Another unique feature is the device's use of robotic fingers to grasp with the back of the hand, as we've mentioned multiple times. Today, robotic wearables often fit around a person's fingers, which creates a tension between what the person and the robot each want to do. However, in this application, the supernumerary grasping, both the person and the robot are free to act as they see fit. Wow. And while grasping with the back of the hand, as the article says, may look silly, it definitely is different. The UC Berkeley team believes it has great advantages that could one day allow the dorsal grasper to be an accessible and effective device for people suffering from these severe spinal injuries.
It seems like they're really highlighting the parts that they can do, like essentially taking the limited motion that they do have and then making it just as useful as, the motion that we all have, which is really incredible that someone thought to, kind of move your wrist up and you can grab just like anyone else. That's really incredible.
Yeah, it's very, very innovative.
For sure. So with that being said, and again, the videos tell the whole story. It's really, really cool. And they show a bunch of different objects, including even like Tupperware, for instance, to be able to hold that, or drinks and whatnot. That Ralph is showing how to do that with a normal hand. So very, very incredible that Ralph can do that. So with that being said, story number 4. And ladies and gentlemen, we have more in the show notes. If you go out there, check it out. If you've been following along, these are stories that we just don't have time for. I'm enjoying the new shorter time frame that we're doing. I think that's still working great. As don't get me wrong, as much fun as 2-hour shows were, 30 minutes I think is a great kind of compromise. So with that being said, honorable mentions are stories that are not less, they're not worse, they're just as good as any of the stories that we told you. And if you want to find out more, you can go to the show notes either on our site or wherever you're listening to this, and you can see the show notes there with the honorable mentions, and you can find out more about these other great stories. So Ralph, the least we could do is give the nice folks the headlines and have them come out and find out more for themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got 4 honorable mentions. First one comes from the Associated Press News Service. And I love this headline. A spine-zapping implant helped 3 people with a muscle-wasting disease walk better. So this is another wonderful medical technology breakthrough. Fascinating story. Check it out. Next one comes from futurism.com. Headline, scientists invent device that straps to any car's tailpipe, transforming exhaust into electricity. What?
Strange.
Wow.
Yeah.
Isn't that something? In the automotive industry, we talked a while back about Mercedes coming up with a solar paint for cars that constantly, when exposed to sunlight, of course, is feeding the car's battery with energy. Well, here's somebody who's come up and said, well, you know what? There's this heat coming out of tailpipes. Can we use that as a way to convert or to generate electricity? Answer, yes. Check this article out. I think it's just fascinating. I love this idea. So simple. May not be a lot of electricity is generating, but what a clever idea, right?
Every bit counts. Yeah.
I love that one. Next one's from interestingengineering.com. Headline, photon-powered quantum battery breakthrough could boost solar cell efficiency. Boy, there's a lot going on in that story. You got photon powered and quantum and all this good stuff in the field of battery technology. Check that one out. And our last story, which I think is really interesting because I had no idea Apple Corporation was doing so much in the area of health studies. The headline here, this I got from the Apple newsroom from their press release, new holistic Apple health study launched today, and that happened to be February 14th, a week ago, in their research app. And to kind of very quickly, in the world of studies and so forth, it's often very hard to get a large number of the population to feed information into so that medical researchers can analyze a problem or trend or whatever the case may be. So what Apple's done is created this wonderful little app you can have on your phone to help contribute this information. So check this out. I don't want to spend a lot of time on it, but they've been involved with something in the past called Apple Women's Health Study, Apple Hearing Study, Apple Heart and Movement Study. And this app now is going to try to merge everything together to create a super database that will help medical researchers. So salute to Apple. I give you a big thank you on that one.
Yeah. I remember when they were coming out with the Apple Watch, that was a big point for them, was that, Ralph, there have been many fitness kind of devices. Apple made it a point to say that ours is medical grade, that they wanted that for a reason. And these studies that you're talking about are exactly the reason, because the sensors need to be good enough, and luckily they are, and this could definitely help people a lot in the future. So ladies and gentlemen, hey, check that out on an iPhone near you. But by and large, yeah, sure, why not? But by and large, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you so much for, tuning into the show and, reading these stories with us. It's always been fun. And hey, we'll be back next Friday. Ralph joins us every single Friday to talk about these stories. And if you want to find out more, computeramerica.com. Once again, you can go ahead and find that there. And until next time, Ralph, thank you so much. Everyone out there, thank you so much. And computeramerica.com. Everyone, have a great weekend. Do something fun. Catch you next time. Bye-bye.